Hey everyone, this is Stephen Glitsky, and I am doing my video presentation over my Likeonomics. So, my understanding of the book Likeonomics, it's all about personal interactions, which creates likability. Now, likability is pretty obvious if you break it down. It's just the ability to be liked. Of course, there seems to be many debatable elements that contribute to how likable either a company, a supervisor, or even colleagues are. Now, according to the author, there are 5 key items which conveniently form a strong acronym, TRUST, that makes up likability. Now, trust is broken down into truth, relevance, unselfishness, simplicity, and timing. But there seems to be 2 types of reactions to likability. Now, a person can feel like it's very obvious that likability exists every day, and it doesn't only exist in business, but everyday social life. There's also the reaction that the product matters more than the person selling it. Now, for me personally, I easily fall into the reaction category of likability being obvious. Now, I'm a very firm believer that it's not what you know, it's who you know. I think that networking is power in society and can be correlated to your likability. The author disagrees with this claim and claims that networking is just a numbers game. Now, a game, you keep score and who can get the most from one another. Now, the author thinks that relationships don't work if you measure them on a scorecard, which I can understand where he's coming from. But I feel like many of my personal experiences, not only in the professional, organizational, and social world, that networking has built me very strong relationships. Now, these bonds initially don't start as one another using each other, but rather as friends that can utilize each other for further successes later on. Now, on the opposite side of the spectrum is knowing your product with little likability. Now, I just recently watched the documentary over Steve Jobs, One Last Thing. Now, according to this documentary, Jobs was not a very liked man, and he really upset a lot of investors and a lot of employees. Now, Jobs was a man that did not use likability in networking. Now, Jobs, he used his knowledge and business skills to convince others to see his vision. So it kind of goes to show both ways that likability can be used, but also knowing your product can be used. But see, what was little talked about in this documentary was about his partner, Steve Wozniak. Now, he was a very lovable guy and possessed many qualities needed for likability. I think this is a large reason for the success of Apple in its starting years. Speaking of likability, according to Forbes magazine, the top reasons that people quit their jobs are because of unhealthy relationships with their bosses and coworkers. Now, people don't want to work with jerks, but rather with someone they can get along with. The job, it usually isn't initially fun, so why make it worse with bad bosses and coworkers? This is why likability and networking can go a long way in business world. I think a great concept that was brought up in the book is that many deals are made on the golf course, which is funny to think because unless you're a good golfer, golf can be one of the most frustrating sports possible. I would know, I'm a golfer myself. But people make it happen every day. Now, why is this? It's because you initially build the relationships and the rest will follow after that. Now, the relationships build the likability. Now, this goes back to what I'd mentioned earlier. It's not what you know, but rather who you know. I know that every single one of my jobs has been from good networking and the right people. This stems from 2 main points the author says about being likable. I think the 2 main ones are trust and timing. You must always tell the truth and show that you can be trustworthy. Without that, all credibility is lost and a relationship is broken. I also agree that timing is everything when it comes to asking questions or even talking to the opposite sex. Nowadays, we're all on schedules, which makes a busy, difficult life. But if the time lines up, then I think everything can work out in your favor. Now, see, the author brings up many, many great points that could be discussed for hours. I think this was a very knowledgeable book that gave me great insight to not only the business world, but ways I can improve my social skills and likability to people. Well, I think this is about all the time we have for now, but the main thing is, trust is everything.